A Different World reboot, or I should say sequel, has been officially announced. Now, they talked about it, I think, a couple of years ago, but now they have a cast with a couple of executive producers, which includes Debbie Allen, and a showrunner, a woman, of course, by the name of Felicia Pride. Now, I will say the one smart thing that they've done is that it will follow the child of Whitley and Dwayne. But outside of that, I have zero hope for this project because we know what it's going to be. It's going to be very feminist, very pro LGBTQ. You're going to have heterosexual men a part of this, but they're going to be, as we know, effeminate heterosexual males. And periodically, they're going to blame Whitey for everything. Now, one thing you know won't be included is the person responsible for this show, Bill Cosby. I'm sure there's going to be no mention of him, Mr. Huxtable, coming to visit the school because he's been ousted from the pro-blackity black sphere ever since he began criticizing them in the early 2000s, which, quite frankly, began his ousting. But anyway, it's going to be very feminist, LGBTQ, emasculate black males. They're all going to be blaming Whitey. And we're going to see it through the POV of the daughter of Wayne and Whitley. Because, of course, they can't have a son. None of these continuations of older properties, when they have a child, they can never be a son. Always has to be a daughter because they hate men, particularly heterosexual men. Now, of course, you can use the excuse, well, the Cosbys, when it spent off, it was following the daughter, Lisa Bonet's character. So they can have that excuse that they're being consistent with that. And I'll tell you another thing that won't get mentioned. They won't mention the fact that HBCUs got an increase in their budget due to a Donald Trump presidency. He did it in his first term, and he's done it in this term. In fact, if Trump does get mentioned, it's going to be in a storyline where, again, they're going to be talking about trying to survive racial oppression during this current presidential administration. It's not going to be anything like the initial version of the show was. And of course, like, you're going to have older cast members outside of Whitley and Dwayne, which, again, like I said, is the only smart decision they'll probably make, leading with them. I mean, they were the most successful outside of A Different World as far as being like in movies. I remember Kadeem Hardison sort of had a promising career for a couple of years until that fell flat. And Jasmine Guy, she was in movies, miniseries like Queen, where she played the biracial daughter of a slave master. But yeah. So again, that's the one compliment that I can give it. But outside of that, we already know what's going to be. It's going to be a reflection of how HBCUs are today. Which is, again, very feminist, pro-LGBTQ, and effeminate males. Now, I have seen the only criticism by some Negroes, the people that's been running with that FBA bullshit that got, created by some failed rapper, wannabe pimp, who's now happily married to his half-Jewish wife. He talked about the element of the casting where there's not a full FBA cast, because they have, people who descend from various African countries. And the funny thing about that is that the IQ for so-called black people in general would significantly decrease if you removed those Caribbeans and Africans that come to America and increase black people's general IQ. Because when you look up the spelling bee champs and those sort of school prodigies that make it to college at 16, most of the time they are so-called black people from the Caribbean, from an African country. And then you have the biracials, of course. You have to take away having the first black president if you don't want to count Obama, who has a Kenyan dad and a white mom raised by his white grandparents. But anyway, and the fact that this is on Netflix, they're going to go into very muddy territory, especially episodes that they highlight any sort of academics, which will be based on falsehoods like we got with the travesty that was that Cleopatra series, and that Viking series that had a black female lead in it. But the one thing that I could probably get out of it is at least clips that I'm sure will be posted on social media highlighting some cringeworthy shit, because that's what I expect out of this show. And as we know, Negroes don't mind. They'll eat it up. They celebrate and consume things like Tyler Perry productions.